Hello, welcome to Lazada Insider, featuring knowledge that makes a difference. We share trusted insights, forward-looking perspectives, and exclusive expert interviews to keep you ahead of the curve.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of Lazada Insider. My name is Yongxi, and I'll be your host for today. If you are new to this series, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you will not miss any future content. Today, SMEs account for around 97% of business entities across Southeast Asia. They have become the essential drivers of economic growth in this region while providing majority of employment to the population. As the impacts of climate change intensify and new challenges in biodiversity and resource limitations become ever so dire, there is growing recognition that economic growth should also contribute to lowering emissions and improving the environmental performance of the economy. While our SMEs continue to grow and develop internationally, in the face of major ESG challenges reinforced by the COVID-19 pandemic, could ensuring that this growth is green be the key to staying competitive? Today, we are very excited to have our expert guest, Ms. Grace Cheah, to share her insights on sustainability from an SME's perspective. Grace is the founder of Sustinere Private Limited, which provides sustainability-related consulting services to clients across various industries on topics ranging from safety, environment, supply chain to labor and ethics issues. She has 12 years of experience in consultancy, having conducted numerous social compliance audits since 2014. And her forte is in environmental and labor rights issues relating to the company's supply chain. Hi, Grace. Welcome and thank you for joining us today on Lazada Insider.
Hi, Yongxi. Thanks for having me here today.
But to start off, could you tell us more about yourself and what you do?
I'm actually a microbiologist by training who ended up doing sustainability related work due to unforeseen circumstances in my career. Personally, I am keen on the topic of labor and human rights because I find that it gives me meaning and purpose in the work that I do.
Thanks, Grace. Now, over the years, we have seen many big brands take on the lead on integrating sustainability into their business strategy considerations. For our SMEs, what do you think would be the areas to take note of when adopting sustainability in their business?
Okay, so for an SME to be sustainable, they should consider the environmental, social, and governance aspects of their business. This could include how they minimize waste in their operations, as minimizing waste also helps us to conserve resources. Other ways in which SMEs could be sustainable from the environmental point of view could include reducing the use of fossil fuels such as petrol or diesel. For the social aspects, the SME could consider ensuring that all their employees and subcontractors are working in a safe environment, free from harassment and discrimination, have freely chosen employment, and are not forced to work against their will. And then, when we start to look at governance aspects, topics such as anti-bribery and corruption would be very important, as well as having in place a code of business conduct and a whistleblowing mechanism for reporting of ethical misconducts. I hope that kind of gives us a broad overview of how SMEs could look at the E, the S, and the G.
Now, that actually brings us to the next question. Specifically for SMEs in the Southeast Asia context, what do you think are some of the risks and opportunities related to sustainability?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of upcoming regulations for SMEs in Southeast Asia that are exporting goods to the EU and the US. They should be aware that there are upcoming regulations on supply chain sustainability. That is, the buyer of the goods, the EU and the US companies are going to be obliged to conduct due diligence checks and ensure that the goods that they purchase have not been made with forced labor, child labor, or bonded labor, and that the workers in these supplier companies have been paid their wages fairly. These regulations may pose a risk for SMEs who are not aware of the requirements or who may not have previously checked how their materials have been sourced or produced. Although we say that the regulations apply to the buyers of these companies, do bear in mind that these regulations will typically trickle down the supply chain, such that even smaller companies may be required to comply with these requirements because people that buy their goods from them or companies that purchase these goods will inevitably pose these questions to the smaller companies as well. On the other hand, a company which has a good oversight on their supply chain, who has implemented clear policies on a sustainable supply chain, may be able to use this as a competitive advantage to differentiate themselves and thus have a better potential to capture new markets.
In your opinion, Grace, for SMEs thinking to start their sustainability journey, what are some of the first few steps that they could take?
Commitment from top management is the most critical. You will need this because a company's sustainability journey will involve employees from all levels. And without top management commitment, it would be difficult to convince employees that they are part of the journey. Patience and perseverance is also just as important. Changes don't happen overnight. Sustainability is a journey. It's like running a marathon. You get better year after year, but you may not necessarily see any tangible outcomes in the first 6 to 12 months, as you may just be laying the groundwork for future work to be done.
I see. And what might be the top challenges that SMEs can expect when implementing a sustainability strategy? And can you offer any advice on tackling these challenges?
I think some of the challenges that SMEs might face would include a high turnover rate, people implementing these sustainability initiatives in the SMEs could leave before the project or initiative is completed, and the new person who's taking over may not necessarily be aware of what the project or initiative was about and thus not see it through. So many sustainability related projects typically need to be run over a period of a year or more in order for it to be implemented, in order for data to be collected, or for proper comparisons to be made. So one of the ways to tackle this challenge is to also have senior management involved in the projects so that they are also aware of the details of the project and initiative, and there's going to be better handover.
Thank you, Grace. Now, coming back to yourself, what is Sustinere's role to facilitate SMEs' sustainability transition?
I see Sustinere as a facilitator to encourage and guide companies to adopt certain best practices which could benefit both the employees and the business. Sometimes it takes a few years of constant engagement with our clients before they finally see the light and agree to adopt these best practices. But we are very patient, so we try again and again and hopefully change their mindsets and influence them to adopt these best practices.
Now, over the years, you must have your fair share of customer experience. Could you share with us one inspiring, successful story?
Well, you're right that we have met many different clients along the way. One of our, I would say, more inspiring stories includes this particular client is an SME. We started working with them about 5 years ago. And initially, when we first started working with them, they had a very high accident rate, which resulted in actually a high payout of workman's compensation as well. At the same time, they did not have in place any safety management system, and the HR staff doubled up as a safety representative because they didn't have enough resources and manpower. There was no structured health and safety training for the employees. And I highlighted to the company the risks that they were potentially being exposed to, and that the potential for serious injury to happen, which may result in a suspension of the business operations, could possibly happen, should something unfortunate take place. So the high accident rate was also resulting in workers being away from work, delayed orders because workers were away on medical leave, and increased costs to the company due to the workman compensation that was being paid out for certain injuries. This high accident rate was also not beneficial to the company's reputation and would not instill confidence in their customers. Eventually, after 2 years, the customer implemented a health and safety management system, and there was a full-time safety officer to manage the health and safety training program. So there was a structured program, for new staff and for employees to have a refresher training every year. So as a result of this, there was also a full-time safety officer to conduct thorough investigations each time after an incident happened, to identify the root cause of the incident and to ensure that proper corrective actions were done. A year after they implemented this health and safety management system, the number of reportable incidents actually fell. And by the 4th year of working with them, we could see that health and safety was a topic that the top management was also involved in. Employees in the company had greater awareness of safety procedures, and more importantly, there was a behavioral change because safety was no longer seen as extra work which makes our lives difficult, but rather it is important for us to do it right so that everyone is safe.
Thank you, Grace. We have come to the end of our interview. Really appreciate yourself for taking time off from your busy schedule to share your insights with us. We certainly hope that more SMEs, especially in the region, will take up sustainability from a business strategy point of view to encourage both behavioral and mindset change.
It's a pleasure to be here, Yong-Si. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, audience. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in the next one.
Lazada.